This past week, I was walking down Folsom Street with a swaggering young businessman. Tall, good-looking, well-educated, charming. This guy's got the world by the tail. And he owns property on a prominent corner in the neighborhood. Property he hopes to sell soon, and no doubt he'll make a killing off of it. And we were talking about all the changes happening in this part of town. The many new luxury condos, the upscale restaurants and coffee shops replacing the old mom and pop grocery stores and taquerias. And I told him I wasn't very excited about all these changes because they come at such a great price. So many families, after generations here, being forced out, some becoming homeless. More and more homeless encampments like the ones just outside our door of people who used to have apartments and homes here. With the homeless shelters now full and over 1,000 people on the waiting list, these people have nowhere to go but the streets. And I told him about the many undocumented people fleeing here for their lives from Central America. Many of them like Floricel, an undocumented mother of 3 kids who's been in detention now for months, away from her kids, threatened with deportation back to the country she had fled for her life. And about the constant threat of more police violence as SFPD increases its use of force against young Latinos in the mission. Yeah, so you might say I was a regular little Mary Sunshine. My businessman acquaintance was stoic. He said that gentrification was one of those inevitable things, like it or not, you have to get used to it. And then he said, "Tell me, what evidence do you see that all the old families will not be driven out by gentrification and the entire mission become one big Valencia Street? What evidence? Show me." And I couldn't think of much other than the resolve of many of us to fight the economic and political odds for the dignity of struggling families that have made their home here, have made the mission what it is today. But no, I couldn't come up with many signs of immediate relief. The cloud just might not lift anytime soon. That's just here in the mission. I won't even mention the orange nightmare that has engulfed our country and world, bringing us to the brink of nuclear war, threatening our civil rights and the viability of our planet. Not much evidence that this dark cloud will lift anytime soon either. In such a context, where's the hope? Where is the hope? It's a question that threads its way all through these wintry days of Advent. Václav Havel, who was no great defender of religion in general, you may remember he was the first president of the Czech Republic. And prior to that, he was a political prisoner for many years. And one day he was asked about those dark years of the 1980s in his country. Do you see any sign of hope anywhere? That was the question. And he replied, not by giving an analysis of the world, but by looking into his own soul. Here's what he said. I should probably say first that the kind of hope I often think about, especially in situations that are particularly hopeless, such as prison, I understand above all as a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope within us or we don't. It's a dimension of the soul. And it's not essentially dependent on some particular observation of the world or estimate of the situation. Hope is not a prediction of the future. It's an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that is immediately experienced and is anchored somewhere beyond its horizons. And he went on and he said, I think the deepest and most important form of hope, the only one that can keep us above water and urges us to do good works, the only true source of the breathtaking dimension of the human spirit and its efforts, is something we get, as it were, from elsewhere. I feel that its deepest roots are transcendental. This is a man who is not all that crazy about religion. For Havel, hope is found not in the external world around us, but in the human heart. It's what enables us, despite the bleakest of forecasts, to withstand the cruel realities of the present. Hope is that relentless and inexhaustible power we have to choose love over fear, no matter what the world throws at us. And as Havel also notes, hope is something transcendental, as it were. It comes from elsewhere. We followers of Jesus have our own take on all of this. We say that this unstoppable hope really is a transcendental thing in our own hearts. And for us, it is also a gift from the one who made us. And it is grounded in an unshakable promise that we've been given. In today's gospel, Mark lifts 2 verses from the prophet Isaiah, part of today's first reading. Those verses were written when most of the Israelites were captives of the Babylonians. Their homeland was no more. The Babylonian armies had destroyed it. Now they were in a strange land, enslaved to their new conquerors. Dark times. And then, in a transcendental moment, as Havel would call it, out of nowhere, Isaiah proclaims that God is on the way, God is coming to rescue. If the classic metaphor of spiritual writers is that our life is a journey, a pilgrimage, in which we overcome various obstacles and meet many challenges to finally reach our destination, if that's the classic metaphor, Isaiah and Mark flip that one around. Now it is not we who are the pilgrims, the travelers, but rather someone else from elsewhere is making the journey toward us. God has not forgotten us, and to arrive straightforwardly is moving heaven and earth, leveling mountains, sweeping away fallen branches, straightening ways that are crooked. This darkness, it's the darkness of the womb and not of the tomb, as Gene Robinson reminded us last week. This crazy, inexplicable, transcendent belief in what we call the coming reign of God grounds the hope that we, as followers of Jesus, carry within us. This promise and the hope that rises from it will see us through whatever present dark moment the world throws at us. But there's more. The hope is not just for Israel. Israel as a people must now proclaim that hope to the larger world. Isaiah tells them, "Get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good tidings. Lift up your voice with strength, O Jerusalem. Herald of good tidings, lift it up. Do not fear." The imagery is beautiful and muscular, and it's also very tender. and it's understandably savored by Handel and many other great composers and poets. He will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs into his arms and carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. Words about a God who comforts, protects, nurtures. Words meant to give light in a dark world, hope in the midst of despair. This is the message Israel as a people was to proclaim to a larger world plunged in darkness. And it's what we as a community here at St. John's, in a rapidly changing and struggling community, what we ourselves must proclaim as well, whether through our night walks or through the Gubbio Project or one of the other ministries we do here. Words and actions that proclaim a hope and a promise, not because we see any evidence that the dark clouds will lift, at least not anytime soon, but because we stubbornly believe the promise God has made to us, and in the capacity the Creator has given us to choose the holy, even in the face of the hellish. So it's the second Sunday of Advent. A promise has been given to us. A vision is set before us. Someone is approaching. A new world is coming to birth. And the question we must answer in these dark, wintry Advent days is whether to trust that promise, believe that vision.